Okay, guys, I still feel like talking. Swear I always make my videos when I'm talking about like important topics when I look rough. But I don't know. It's whatever. First of all, let me read this Bible verse. So this is Proverbs 6, verse 16 through 19. And it says, "There are 6 things the Lord hates. No, 7 things he detests: haughty eyes, a lying tongue, hands that kill the innocent, a heart that plots evil, feet that race to do wrong, a false witness who pours out lies, and a person who sows discord in a family." So that's the NLT version. Let's see if there's another version. Let's try the NIV. The NIV, verse 16, says, "There are 6 things the Lord hates, 7 that are detestable to him: haughty eyes, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked schemes, feet that are quick to rush into evil, a false witness who pours out lies, and a person who stirs up conflict in the community." I sometimes like to read over different versions because some of them, it's like different language can help you understand it better. And I know how people like to say like, "Oh, all the translations of the Bible." It's not changing the meaning. It's sometimes a different version or translation can give you a better or deeper understanding. So I like how it says, the other version said a person who causes conflict in the family, and this one says a person who stirs up conflict in the community. But a false witness who pours out lies. The one we're going to focus on today is hands that shed innocent blood, because I feel like every time I've read that verse in the Bible, I immediately think of abortion. It's like I know there's other versions of hands that shed innocent blood, you know, um, you know, murder, any really murder. If you're killing someone who is not guilty of a crime that calls for murder, that's killing innocent blood. Because you also have to frame this in like a biblical perspective of the laws, because there were some Old Testament laws that required immediate death. It required people being stoned immediately to death. And, we're talking about a time where it was like an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. So basically, if you did something to someone else, you had to face the consequences of that. And sometimes it was like threefold, like 3 times or 1.5 times what that person took from you, you would have to owe back. So just think about it from that perspective. So if someone committed murder, they were punished to death. But there's a lot of actually other laws that people would break in the Bible that would require them to be put to death. But anyways, that's what the hands who shed innocent blood. It means the person didn't commit a crime that required them be put to death. Therefore, they were killed, being innocent. Because I feel like some people see that, well, I guess you can interpret it in different ways. But I usually interpreted it like that person hadn't committed any crimes, right? So every time I read that verse, I always think of abortion, because abortion is essentially, and this is where it's just like, I feel like I just have to tell the truth about this, because it's like the truth always sounds harsh. It's like when people, lies are very sweet, tell me nothing, sweet nothing, sweet, like lies cater to people's feelings. They make them feel good. When we're lying to people, it's usually because, I mean, lies actually are harmful. Like, that's the whole thing. The other part of it is that the God says he hates a lying tongue, and also he again says a false witness who pours out lies. You know, someone who's witnessing in a court and they're lying on that person's name. Like, lies are harmful, lies are deceptive, and the Bible calls Satan the father of all lies. So we can't look at like lying to people is okay. I feel like lying is not okay. Um, you know, I mean, you can maybe like, and I feel like lies, a lot of people's lies cater to their feelings. But anyways, I feel like the abortion industry is full of a lot of lies. The first lie being it's not murder. The first other lie being it's not a human, a baby. I feel like those are the biggest lies in the abortion industry. But what I really wanted to make this video about is the difference between miscarriage and abortion tells you the truth of abortion. So, before getting into that, let's talk about what abortion is and what abortion isn't. Abortion is will I this is what I consider abortion, because there's the legal term abortion, but what most people are referring to when we talk about abortion is not a miscarriage, is not a DNC of a already passed away fetus, human baby, whatever. We're not talking referring to the issues where it's, you know, a um a life threatening situation. When people are talking about abortion, we're talking about the willful intentional unaliving of a living human fetus in the womb. I have to use very specific language sometimes because I'm just like the I want to make sure I'm being very clear, because I think that's another very deceptive thing where people will be like, abortion is no different from a miscarriage. Yes, it is. And I feel like that's a super harmful, it's a very harmful, manipulative, deceptive way to kind of let people feel like, they're not doing what they actually are doing. It's a manipulation tactic, basically, to compare a miscarriage to someone willfully intentionally ending the life of their child in their womb, or allowing a doctor to willfully intentionally end the life of their child in their womb. At the end of the day, one was someone's choice. It was an intentional choice that person made. The other one, I would say, is a nature argument, but you can go deeper into it because, people can also miscarry intentionally, and do things while they're pregnant that will cause harm to their child. And it's also kind of considered neglect. Like, people, there's been CPS cases basically called on mothers who are like drinking and smoking or doing drugs while pregnant because they're neglecting the right of that child's life, and that there's knowledge that drinking and smoking while pregnant can cause harm to the child in the womb. So it's like the life of that child in the womb is acknowledged by CPS when, we're reporting a pregnant woman who's, drinking and smoking or doing things that are harmful to their baby while pregnant. But at the same time, we have a society that says you can also just go ahead and completely kill that child, and there's nothing wrong with that. The hypocrite, the it's like the cognitive dissonance for me is what I don't understand. I can't is why I can't be on a pro-choice stance, because you can't equally say it is so wrong for a pregnant woman to drink and smoke while pregnant because it causes harm to that child, but also say it's 100% okay if a woman chooses to just kill the child altogether, free of consequences. These can't both be equally okay, because you're saying the person completely ending the life of their child has done no wrong, but the person who's causing harm to their child through their choices to drink and smoke is extremely wrong and unsafe, and that's not okay. How can you hold those two ideas and not see the issue with abortion? Um yeah, I don't know how people's the mental gymnastics. And honestly, I do think people have to go through a lot of mental gymnastics and jump through a lot of these hoops in order to justify abortion, because it's really not justifiable. That's the actual problem, is it's really hard to justify ending an innocent human life in the womb. It's an unjustifiable thing that we're trying to justify. And so people have to allude to, you know, all of these other, it's like there's always the focus is taken away. Dehumanizes, they dehumanize the child. It's just a clump of cells. It's not a person. It doesn't have consciousness. It's just a fetus. Deny humanity to the fetus, the baby womb. I honestly feel like it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, it's still a unique human life that is separate from the life of the mothers. People will call it a parasite. All of these, like, you know, manipulative language that the pro abortion, I guess, I say pro abortion and not pro choice, because I feel like pro choice is just another manipulative language tactic that is used to kind of, you know, not show the harsh reality of what abortion is. And if I say pro killing innocent human beings, that doesn't sound as good as saying pro abortion or pro choice, or I guess just saying pro choice. But like I said, these are two the examples I gave. You know, we would say a pregnant woman who is drinking, smoking while pregnant, that is harming the baby. That baby can come out with defects, have heart problems, brain problems, because of the actions of its mother while they are in the womb, and that is considered abuse by child protective services. But in the same breath, the same legislation says it's also legally, perfectly legal and moral for a mother to choose to just completely end the life of that child while they're in their womb. And some people believe up to any point, any stage, up until birth. So, like I said, if you don't see the issue with these two things being both justifiable, I don't know what to tell you. Um and I guess the argument people have for that, oh well, I mean, I don't know, how do you justify that? What is the argument people have? Well, one actually wants the child, the other one doesn't, but the one who wants the child is worse than the one who doesn't want it in the eyes, the morals of, based off of the morals of pro-choicers, you know, that the person who's drinking and smoking while pregnant, they should just kill the baby altogether, right? Like, that's the better option according to pro-choice logic. That is really just, it's like, as a Christian, the abortion industry is very demonic. It's very evil. Um I feel like there is nothing loving, caring about pushing women to kill their own children in their womb. I feel like Satan couldn't have come up with a better, like, no one but Satan could have come up with that concept, because Satan hates women, he hates children, he hates people altogether. So what does he do? He says, oh, I'm going to convince women to kill their own babies, to sacrifice the lives of their own child. um and I like how it's referred to. It really is human sacrifice. um it's a form of human sacrifice. And there was literally, I feel like the satanic church actually argued that as a pro abortion tactic. They said their religion requires them to be able to sacrifice their children, and that they needed abortion to do that. That's a real argument the satanic church gave, by the way. Look it up. I'm not making that up. So yeah, if your views align with the satanic church, you might want to think about your stance. But anyways, the biggest thing, and this is my biggest issue, is I feel like it's truly a evil, it's a evil, it's an evil industry. The abortion industry is truly evil. It's truly demonic, satanic, abusive, honestly, to the woman and the children. And it's like the things people argue to support abortion are always just, it never sat right with me. Like using kids who are adopted, using foster care, using poverty, using all of these like other problems to justify killing. It's like they always have to create a straw man argument. It's like we're arguing about another completely issue other than the fact that is it wrong? It's wrong to kill an innocent human being. Period. Like just point blank period. So there's that. And I think the reason that the abortion industry tries to use all of these emotional manipulation tactics to convince women they have the right to an abortion and they need the right to an abortion, because people wouldn't be as willing to get an abortion if they told the actual truth about it. But if we can manipulate people and get them emotionally convince them that this is something they need for their safety, for their rights, for their life, that's what it is. It's a bunch of lies and deception, that they're using to convince women to essentially sacrifice their children's lives and to harm them. And I always state this, like, I don't hate women who get abortions. I know how evil abortion is, and I do believe it is morally wrong and that that decision comes with consequences. However, there is grace, there is forgiveness of that choice. As a Christian, I believe there's forgiveness through Jesus. If you are someone who's had an abortion and regrets it, I truly believe that there is healing for that and forgiveness for that through Jesus, because that's that's the God that I serve. So this is not me specifically, like I'm not hating on women. I'm literally just honestly I'm telling the truth about what abortion is, and people don't like it when I say it. The truth sounds so harsh, right? It's like, why are you talking about abortion? Why are you saying killing innocent beings? Why are you saying like murder? Why are you using because that's the reality of it. And the more we try to gloss over and pretend that abortion is not unaliving and killing human beings, it's like when you say it for what it is, mothers are willingly choosing to kill their own children in their womb. That's what abortion is. Mothers are choosing to kill their own children in their womb and calling that good and calling it their right and calling it their choice and calling it good. And I feel like there's generations of women before us who would look at what we're doing now and say we are the most evil generation, that women believe they have the right to kill, like we're are killing their own children in the womb. It's like, you know how we look back at the women in the Old Testament that were literally throwing their newborn babies onto a piling ball of fire and saying that's horrible, that's brutal, that's barbaric. That's what people are looking at the abortion industry and thinking. How are these women okay with um, allowing a doctor to harm their own child? How are these women okay with it? Why don't they see the problem with it? Like I said, there's a lot of mental gymnastics, and there's also just a lot of lies and manipulation and deception happening to convince someone that they have the right to kill their own child in the womb. Because you don't just get to that conclusion from generations of women who sacrifice their life for their children. Women, literally, if you read anything in the Bible, there's all these women wanted was children. How many women in the Bible were praying to have a child? And how many women in the Bible were aware that having a child could result in death? A lot of people were dying giving birth to their children, and they still wanted children. They still wanted the blessing of a child because they saw their child's life as being that worthy. This is the complete opposite of what the world teaches. It is telling women in this modern age. It's like people were willing to die to have kids, and now we live in a generation where people are willing to kill their own kids for their own life. It's the exact opposite of it's the exact opposite of well, really it's the opposite of love. I don't think you can lovingly kill somebody. And I feel like a mother who loves her child would sacrifice her own life to protect her child. That's what a nurturing, loving mother does. And that's what how God did actually design women to be. You know, mothers are supposed to nurture, they're supposed to care, they're supposed to protect the life of their children. And what the abortion industry has done is flip that to the complete opposite. And one of the phrases I've always liked to say is like abortion turns mothers into murderers of their own children. That is the harsh reality of what abortion does, because they're still a mother. Just because that child life was ended, you were still that child's mother. You are still that child's mother, and that's the harsh evil reality. You are a mother of a child. And I know it's like it sounds bad. It sounds horrible. And that's what I'm wanting people to understand. I just lost a nail in my hair. That's what I'm wanting people to understand. The harsh reality of abortion is it's really evil. It's very evil. It's very harmful. Um, you know, it's like I couldn't imagine living in a world where, you know, it was normal and it was okay for women to sacrifice their children to this false god Baal in the Bible, where they had a molten, it's just like a molten, people were throwing their children into a fire, lighting their child on fire. Just imagine like the screams, just like how evil that sounds, right? But what are we doing now? It's like just because it's not a ball of fire that the how the children are being killed, people are pretending it's not just as bad, if not worse. And I don't know. Again, it's just The truth sounds harsh if you believe a lie, and when you've convinced yourself of a lie that abortion isn't murder. Like, are gonna hate people often hate the person who's telling them the truth, and they love the people who are lying to them because the lies are catering to their feelings, but the truth is the reality. And lies don't uphold to the truth. You know, you can lie to someone all day. You can lie and cater to that person's feelings and pretend like, abortion isn't murder and abortion, but we all know the truth. We all know the reality. Someone who gets an abortion is not showing like the choice. There's a true difference, an obvious difference. A woman who gets an abortion doesn't have a child in their arms in 9 months. It's a very obvious what happened to the child. A two woman, both 15 weeks pregnant, one has an abortion, one chooses to keep the baby. Both started at a similar point. One ends up having a child that the world can actually see, and there's another human life now existing that everyone else can communicate with and see and observe and love and cherish and hold. And the other one, but both existed, whether you have an abortion. I'm like, it's not even about at what point someone has an abortion, because at any point you ended that life. I don't understand why people argue like the semantics of it, whether the child was killed at 13 weeks, 15 weeks, 17 weeks, 40 weeks. The child's life was ended at a point where the person who doesn't choose to end the life of their child the child is still living. And I feel like this also, for me, from just a logical perspective, your life begins at conception, not at birth. You were alive before you were born, because there's such thing as a delivering. Some people have to deliver babies, a dead baby, right? So in order to deliver a dead baby, that baby is not dead the entire time they're in the womb. The baby died at some point in its mother's wombs. When people lose a child while they're still in their womb, and people go through the traumatic experience of a miscarriage at any point, right? And people often say, well, it's worse. It's worse at whatever stage. It's worse the closer that baby was to term. But if a baby can die in the womb, that means the baby was alive in the womb at one point. It's like you are living the entire time you're in your mother's womb. I don't know why that is a controversial thing to say. Um, some people want to argue over when life has consciousness, or you're not alive until you're conscious. I'm not even gonna get into the whole consciousness argument, because for me it's a non argument. Consciousness is not what makes your life value. Consciousness has value because you are alive to begin with. Anyways, the entire premise, I feel like, of you know pretending abortion isn't ending a life, and the life of the child is separate from the mother's. I hate when people pretend like, you know, when they're having an abortion, it's not another person's body, it's just their body. You are aborting your child's life. You are ending the life of your child, a life that was separate from yours. Now, is it dependent upon yours? Because you are most fragile during your first 40 weeks in the womb. You literally have to develop your entire your entire body. Your every single system is developed during in utero. So you're literally the most fragile. Like, why? It's like that's the whole purpose of the womb. Like, the mother's womb exists, literally the biological purpose of your womb as a woman is to house, protect, and nurture the life of your children. That is the only purpose of your uterus, actually, by the way. Like, the actual biological purpose, your body fights to protect the life of your child in your womb. Even if you're not actively doing it, your body fights to protect the life of your children, because your body, a woman's own body recognizes the value of their children. It really is. Abortion is literally going against your biological um body's protection of that child. Abortion is really not like, abortion is not a biological, it's not a natural thing. Let me just make that, it goes against the nature of a woman's body, actually, because your own body fights to protect the life of your offspring, of your children. A woman's body is designed literally to protect and nurture life, and at the beginning of your life. Like, every person in existence, if you're alive right now and talking and speaking, you are only here because a woman housed you in their womb for 40 weeks until you were strong enough to exist outside of her womb. A woman nurtured you, carried you. Like, the power that women hold. And it's making me cry saying this, because women are rejecting they're rejecting their own nature when they have an abortion. Like, your body was literally created by God to be the vessel through which all life enters the world. And it's like you're rejecting God's design of your womb. When you have an abortion, God created you, designed a woman with the ability to carry and nurture and protect a life when it's the most fragile. God created women and designed women to do something so special, so loving, so nurturing, so amazing. And literally, the enemy has convinced women to see their own children as their enemy. Huh. Like, saying it like that is just like, it breaks my heart, actually. It breaks my heart to know that, because it's so much deeper than what people think it is. That's what I'm trying to say. It's so much more than just, I didn't want to be pregnant, I can't afford to raise my child, I don't have the money, I don't have the resources, I'm not ready. God designed you for that purpose. You were created, your body was literally designed to hold and to house and to nurture and to protect life. To hold and create and to nurture and to protect life when it's the most fragile. And it's such a beautiful thing. And of course, what the enemy does is he takes, God takes what the enemy makes for evil and turns it for good. But people don't realize that the devil takes what God made for good and turns it for evil. That's what the devil does. That's the opposition that is happening right now. Because the devil takes anything that God created for good, that God designed for good, and turns it for evil. And uses it for destruction. Okay, I think that's all I can say about that. Now let me get into the miscarriage part of this, because some people try to argue or pretend it's no different than a miscarriage. And I would say the argument that an abortion and miscarriage are one of the same, I feel like, is the difference between someone dying in their sleep of natural causes and someone forcing a pillow over that person's mouth while they're asleep and suffocating them to death. That's the comparison, apples to oranges. One is someone purposely, willfully having the intent to end that person's life, and someone else making the decision to end that person's life. The other is a natural cause, right? Meaning that person wanted the child, was not willingly trying to cause harm to that child, and the baby passed away of natural causes. That's a miscarriage. And I don't think that should ever be compared to someone who has an abortion, because they're not the same thing at all. And imagine, someone is mourning the loss of a child that they really wanted, and someone who willingly, intentionally ended the life of their child is saying, well, we're the same. We have the exact same experience. I actually, and this is where some people might disagree, I actually think the person who willfully killed the child has a worse trauma from it. I personally believe that it is way worse for the person who intentionally allowed the unaliving of their child to happen. I feel like there's more trauma from choosing to abort your child than from having a miscarriage or choosing to have your child. I think there's way worse trauma from choosing to abort a child than a miscarriage, putting a child up for adoption, or having the child. And I think having the child actually has the least amount of trauma. How many women are literally find a purpose in life after they have their children? How many women who were depressed and felt lost have a new purpose in life once they have their children? I've seen so many women, young mothers, older mothers, say that their child saved their life and gave their life meaning and purpose. I hear about that more. I rarely heard a lot of women say that my child was the worst thing to ever happen to me. And a woman who is saying that, it doesn't even sound right. It would sound like that person is evil to say such a thing. Yet, that's the exact type of woman pro-choicers use to justify abortion. My child would ruin my life, therefore I need to be able to kill them. You are justifying murder using the worst types of people, actually, but the worst types of things. I also never understood the argument that uses foster care and adoption or abusive situation, because a child being abused, it's not the child's fault. Saying that because someone might suffer in the future, therefore we should just go ahead and kill them now, never really made sense in my brain as being a good argument for, or a good justification of murder. Just because we're all gonna die, does that mean we just kill people as soon as they're born? This person's gonna die. This person might suffer. Therefore, let's just go ahead and kill them now. And I feel like death is final suffering. That's what I feel like it never really made sense to me to be an argument for abortion. Is like, well, that person's gonna suffer in the future, so let's just go ahead and let them suffer now, kill them, and they just never even have the chance to decide for themselves whether the suffering they might have endured as an adult was still worth going through just to have a life. Because all of the people living have a voice and have a choice and can say, yeah, I've suffered, but I think my life was still worth it. I think my life still has purpose. I think my life still has meaning. But the person who ended that person's life takes away that person being able to choose whether or not their existence was actually worth it. I also feel like this idea that because you abort a child that they didn't exist, also not true. The person who has an abortion knows that child existed. No one forgets aborting a child. You don't forget, oh, I aborted a child. You don't forget that person. That person existed just as much as every other person on this planet existed. Their life was just ended before they could actually be born and exist outside their mother's wombs for the world to see. That's also why I don't like the argument of your life, like, you abortion's okay up until birth, because like I said, being born is not when your life began. You're alive before birth. As people who've experienced stillbirth know, that's a painful thing to have to deliver a baby who's already passed away. Um and it's sad. And it's like, if you can mourn someone having a stillbirth and mourn someone having a miscarriage, and mourn, like, why do we not mourn all of the babies that are aborted as well? And I feel like the pro-choice side doesn't understand why pro-lifers mourn aborted babies the same way we mourn babies that are stillborn, the same way we mourn a miscarriage, because it's still a tragic end of the life. But the difference, and this is the key difference, is a stillborn child, a miscarriage was not an intentional act of the woman or a doctor or a physician to harm that child or end that child's life. And that's also why I would say there's a lot more trauma when women have an abortion than any other choice that they can make, because you have to live with a choice to end your own child's life. And I don't think, like, no, that's a consequence of abortion that I don't think a lot of people actually understand, because up until getting an abortion, a lot of people are convincing themselves of a lie that they're not ending in their human life. It's just a clump of cells, it's just tissue, it doesn't matter. And then once the reality sets in, oh, I ended my own child's life, and they have to sit with that. And that's where the trauma comes from, because the reality and the truth of what they did sets in. And for some women, it takes years for that realization to happen. Sometimes it's not until they have other children, or it's later in life. But once that reality sets in, it is a hard truth to sit with and live with. And that's why I know for a fact every woman who had an abortion needs the forgiveness and love of Christ in their life. They need a relationship with Jesus to heal from that. That is a hard choice, in my opinion. If you are going to make that choice, it comes with a deep consequence, a spiritual one. It comes with a lot of trauma, and everything else. Like, I don't think those women are what's it called, flourishing in life the way they thought. You know, if someone's sacrificing the life of their child because, I need it's my career can't take off if I have a child, or I can't do this, and they basically choose their career over their child. That person might live a life where their career makes them happy, but it's just like, they're always going to think about, the child that they could have had and what a different choice would have looked like for them. I feel like that's what creates a lot of the regret and trauma that women who've had abortions face. Maybe years down the road, that they might have felt relief initially because they were so scared of the pregnancy and they had all this fear and they're unsure and they don't know what to do, and they're being told, well, this is the best option, we'll take care of it. But then the reality sets in years down the line, and then they're stuck with that what if. I feel like that's what's hardest to live with, and why I personally feel like there is worse trauma for women who have abortions. Just my I guess, psychological opinion. Anyways, I think the abortion industry is evil. I think it's harmful to women. It's obviously harmful to the babies that are being killed, but it's just an evil, satanic, demonic industry. And I just feel like I need to be bold about my stance because I'm telling the truth. Like, I'm not lying. That's the whole thing. Like, I know people say Kanye West is crazy or whatever, but I love to quote him when he says, "The truth sounds crazy in a world full of lies." And when you um talk about the harsh reality of abortion to people in the pro-choice movement who believe they have this right, who are being deceived and manipulated and lied to about abortion altogether, when you tell them the harsh truth and the harsh reality, they never want to believe it. And they get mad at the person telling them the truth instead of getting mad at the abortion industry that is evil and lying and corrupt and deceptive and manipulating them to begin with. Because all of the money we spend, you know, to making sure women can have abortions could go to making sure women have support when they're having a pregnancy that they don't have money for women who are struggling. I don't know, I don't have a way to take care of my baby. Like, a pregnancy crisis center does way more for women than an abortion clinic does. And people love to pretend like pro-lifers only care about the babies, but pro-lifers do way more for pregnant women and women in general than the abortion industry has ever done for women, because all the abortion offers is the death of that child. They don't offer therapy services for after the abortion, which probably a lot of women need. They don't offer a real any type of empathy. In fact, after listening to a debate of, I think it was Abby Johnson, who used to work at Planned Parenthood, and she talks about how they're not allowed to say baby, they're not allowed to say child, they're not allowed to say him, her, use any type of pronouns. It's a very cold thing, and the reason it's like that because Planned Parenthood knows it's trying to convince women to kill their own children, which is why they're trying to dehumanize the children before the woman get the abortion. It's like telling women to hate their own child, getting women to hate their own children so that they're okay with killing it is what the plan is, what I shouldn't say Planned Parenthood specifically, but what the abortion industry's goal is. They want women to hate their own children, to not love, not care about, not support, not nurture, not protect. They want you to hate your own child, see your own child as your enemy, so that you are okay with killing it, dehumanizing the child. That's what the abortion industry does. So, that's what I have to say about it. Like I said, the harsh truth. I'm not sugarcoating it. I'm telling y'all the reality. And like I said, it really does break my heart to see so many women fall prey to that lie and manipulation. And I really hope any woman watching this who maybe has had an abortion knows how loved they are by God. God loves you. Jesus loves you. He wants a relationship with you, and he wants to offer you healing from that choice that you might have made. And even if maybe you're watching this and you don't regret it at all, if you come to regret it down the road and you're dealing with the trauma or the pain of that choice that you make, I really hope that you know that there is forgiveness and there is healing for it, and that healing will only ever come through a relationship with Jesus, because a therapist is not going to be able to, I mean, that's the thing. It's like what a therapist will do probably to a woman in abortion is probably just lie to them to hurt, save their feelings, right? They're going to lie and be like, "Oh no, you didn't kill your child. No, that was your choice. That was your right. You were just making the best decision for yourself." They're going to try to lie to that woman to cater to the feelings instead of saying, "Hey, You maybe weren't aware of the choice that you were making at the time, that it would come with the harsh traumatics of it because you weren't told the truth. You weren't being told the truth about what you were doing. And then when that reality sets in, you're faced with the harsh consequences of it because that's the actual truth. And when you cater to people's feelings and don't tell them the truth, they can't heal. You can't heal from that if you're being lied to about the reality of it. And I feel like the women whose stories I read who regret their abortion and then, change their stance to being pro life and anti abortion, I feel like they have a better head on their shoulders because they actually understand the reality. They're not still lying to themselves about the choice that they make, and they can regret it and say, you know what? This choice I made that I've come to regret, and I regret and live with, wondering what my child would have been like. But, they have more healing from being able to stand on the truth rather than still trying to cater to the lies that the abortion industry tells women. So I leave y'all with that. Um, I'm probably gonna turn comments off on this video because I'm not arguing with y'all. This is not a debate. This is me sharing, like, I'm not gonna debate with people in the comments on it. I know, like, that's what I'm saying. I know people are still gonna be pro-choice. I know people's are gonna use the same pro-choice arguments they always use whenever someone, tells them why they're pro-life or whatever. But like I said, this really isn't about pro-choice, pro-life. It's about the truth, what I believe is right, what I believe is wrong. And honestly, to me, the actual enemy is Satan, but the abortion industry itself that is lying to women, manipulating women, and convincing women to hate their own children and convincing women that their children are their enemies. Like I said, like, even just thinking about it, like how God designed you, your body as a woman was designed to nurture your child. Your biologically, your body fights to nurture your child when they're in your womb. Your body fights for the life of your child even when the mother maybe isn't. The body fights for it because your body was designed to nurture and hold life. And it's a beautiful, amazing gift God gave woman. But because of sin and because of the mistakes people make, having sex outside of marriage, having sex with the wrong person, hookup culture, participating in all of these acts, and then they become pregnant, in bad situations, you know, and a pregnancy comes about from that because God designed sex for marriage, and married people typically like the joy of having a child, but outside of marriage you're having sex, and then a life is created, but the life isn't created in the, you know, what's the word I'm thinking of? In the context, not context, in the way it would be ideal, right? It's not ideal that a teenager gets pregnant. It's not ideal that someone has a one night stand and gets pregnant. Like, these are all the unideal situations that pregnancy is the result of. And now people have to want the option to kill that child because of that. And also, I'm specifically not mentioning grape because I don't believe in abusing the emotional trauma of people who've experienced SA to make a point about abortion. I honestly think, like, a lot of pro-choicers are actually very manipulative to use the trauma of SA victims in order to promote abortion, even though they believe people should be able to get abortion regardless of grape. I feel like it's an unnecessary use of someone's trauma in order to gain a benefit from it for those who didn't actually experience the trauma. I think that's an abusive, emotionally manipulative, abusive use of someone else's trauma. And that's why I don't like talking about grape specifically when it comes to the topic of abortion, because I feel like I'm not gonna use someone else's trauma as a talking point when you would still want, if you would want abortion regardless of it, why always talk about grape? Why always bring up someone's trauma in order to make a point about it? So yeah. Ooh, that's all I have to say, y'all.